Hey, welcome neighbors. Today we're going to talk about a household electrical system. Now, what inspired me to create this video is because I know a lot of people coming out of high school have learned this stuff, but at least the theory of it. But when it comes to actually wiring up a switch or an outlet in your house, uh, you may not know how to do it. And I totally understand that because in the high school context, it's much preferable to use low current DC lab equipment to teach electricity. And as well as students, we may not have had any motivation to learn um, these concepts because we don't have our own house to wire. So let's get into this. So for today's practical example, I'm going to show you how to wire a typical single gang box. We're going to put a switch in that, and then we're going to wire it up to an outlet box like this with a outlet. So these two outlets will be controlled by a switch that's in here. So let's get into how to wire that. So before I go any further, this is your typical starting point in your house. But pretend this is in your wall and this is the box. Now, as I said, coming in from the bottom, from your electrical panel, you have an input cable here, this white Romex cable. And then at the top, you have to your either your light fixture or your outlet. It may be coming out the side, but on this box, it's coming from the top. Now notice that there's two cables, right? Notice thing, the white cable, the neutral, is always bound. So this white wire is coming from the top Romex, and this white wire is going to this Romex coming from the panel. The whites are always joined, okay, by convention. You cannot mix this up, okay? And here, there's a hot coming from your panel, from the input Romex. And of course, there is a hot coming from your appliance or whatever this Romex cable is going to, your outlet, right? And notice inside the box, very deep far down in there, you will see the bare unshielded ground cable in here. See this I don't know if it's focusing on this, but this is the ground cable and it's bound by a screw at the bottom here, if you can see, to the box. Okay, so that screw is cinching the ground cable down into the box. So the ground and the box are connected, and also there's an equivalent ground cable, bare wire, that's coming from the one that's going to your fixture, your light or your outlet. That one is cinched to the other to the box through another screw. Now, whichever one it is, there will be one longer ground cable, and that's the one you're going to connect to the to your switch here, okay, to the chassis, this one. So let's get into wiring this up. So notice the first one I connected was the ground. It's not because there's a safety concern with the breakers all powered off, but I'm just doing it because it was the shortest wire. It's easier to get that one in there, because if you get the other wires in there, you might not be able to maneuver this thing around, okay? So it's just easier whenever you have a short wire to connect that one first. Next, we'll go on to connecting the other, the hots, okay? So the hots are basically going to be connected to the two terminals. But make sure, again, stay with the conventions here. We're going to take the terminal that's closest to the ground on the bottom half of this switch. We're going to take that as the input, okay? And the top half, we're going to take that as the output. Always stay with convention, all right? So let's do it. And there you go. For this switch, because is insertable terminals in the back, you know, they don't come out, it's good, right? We just plug them in, make it easy. But before we put this box into, before we put the switch into the box, and make sure, and one thing is that, you know, there's a tangle mess of wires in here. It's perfectly normal to have to push them down. I know it's tough, but you can push them down. Don't worry about the, you know, the wire shielding here and everything. These are tough cables. That's why you always want to use Romex cable graded for, that's why these are graded for household. Okay, so the cabling is extra thick here, so it's expected that you will push these things hard into the box. You might need to fold them with your fingers or whatever, but you can push them in. But before doing that, what I like to do is to use some high quality electrical tape, ones that are rated for heat and cold, right? And the quality you can determine, because when you look at this thing, it's very sticky. If you get the dollar store kinds, don't use those for household installation. They're good for nothing. Okay, those electrical tape is more for, you know, binding other kind of things, anything other than electrical, actually. So please just use good materials for household stuff, right? This is important wiring. You don't want these to come loose. So what I like to do is I get a length of tape and I like to wrap around the entire body where the terminals are here, right? I wrap the entire thing such that if when I'm going to service this switch, that if I touch the switch, I'm not going to be touching any of the metal on this chassis. Just makes things a little bit more safe. Okay, extra safe. And just what a note here, right? Why I do this now. Because we're using the push-in terminals, it doesn't matter too much. But if we're using these the screw-in terminals, which you can, right? This tape becomes extra important because you don't want this to come free after installation. If anything were to slip, right? You don't want this to slip off, especially when you're forcing this thing into the box. So all you gotta do now is to force it into the box. That's it, and we're done. We're done for the switch part anyway. So I'm not gonna put this in now because it's kind of tough and you actually have to screw it. But that's not the point of this thing. We've shown basically how to do this, right? This is how you wire up the switch. So next I'm gonna wire up this box, and this is where our outlet's gonna be. Okay, but just one note, I'm gonna make this so that it's, you know, our typical starting point that you get in your house. But if you're adding a circuit yourself, make sure one thing when you get this box that you also get these connectors that go in here. These are anti-fatigue connectors. They're very important. Because when you feed these cables, when you feed the Romex cables into here, and this one doesn't have that clamp as in the other switch box, these are very sharp, these edges here, and it's possible if there's any movement that, especially when you're installing it, you can accidentally cut into the cable and cause a short circuit there. So use these. Make sure you put these things in here. These are the anti-fatigue, and there's the right size for each of them. So you have to use these, right? So one thing, let's strip this wire to show you basically how I do it. Okay, so get a scissor. You get a scissor or utility knife, and just start the cut down here. Put it inside just put it inside the shielding here, and start cutting away a bit of it. Okay, just a tiny bit, just enough, right? And then you peel back some of the shielding, like this. Peel back some of the shielding, right? Just enough. Now it's hard to rip like this because the rubber is kind of thick. What I do is, then I grab a plier, 2 pliers actually. One we're gonna grab onto, let's say the whatever ends up longer. Okay, grab the white one. Okay, you grab the neutral cable here, and then you take another plier, which I had lying around here, which fell on the ground, of course. Grab on to the metal one, to the ground, because the ground is skinny, right? So I grab this one and I pull. Okay? You see that the ground will pull. You see that strip the jacket. You see the jacket is ripping off, so you just pull a bit more. Open, open, open. And you see now that it's very easy to remove the shielding. And then I just cut it, right? Just cut the remainder off. Right? So that's an easy way to strip this thing. Okay. So before I plug them into the outlets actually do label their terminals white and black, right? So they correspond in black and white. Okay, so on the sides, this is the white side, this is the black side for the black cable. So make sure you follow this convention. And also, while I could have plugged this black cable into the back hole here, for those of you that are curious, I wanted to show you how to make the loop and tie it around this screw terminal. Basically what you need to do is use your needle nose plier or a multi plier like this, designed specifically for home electrical work. A plier like this. It has a little hole here. You see this little hole here. It's not for cutting, but it's used for bending. It's used for bending wire into loops. You can either use the teeth here, or you can do the circle here. So basically, what you have to do now is you gotta strip a little bit more wire than what's over here, just to make this a little bit easier. So let's do that. So these strippers are really good because they have the exact wire gauge marking, so you don't damage your wires. So you stick it through the right teeth here, and you simply just strip it a little bit more than usual. So come here. Okay, this is the 14 gauge hole. Okay, so here, strip. You see how easy it strips with the right tool. Then you grab it, and you could make a loop with that. You could just put it through the hole and turn it. Okay. Right. As you can see, it's relatively fuss-free, right? Then, okay, let's do this bottom terminal. This is close. Sorry, the bottom terminal is closer here. Okay, open that as far as it goes. You don't have to take it off. You can if you want, if it's really tight, right? So then you just take your pliers here and just loop it around this one. Okay. You see that? I hope you can see this. Okay, so you go around and you push it, kind of force it around. Okay, see, it's nice. It's a nice loop like this. And you notice the direction where I crimped it. I crimped it clockwise, so that when you tighten the screw down, this will not loosen. Okay, so you want to make sure you go the same way as you tighten. So you gotta just screw it down Just hand tighten. That's enough. So now it's all good and tight. Okay. So now all three wires are connected here. So I'll put this into the box. All right. And the final steps again will be just tape it around with electrical tape. So we'll do that. Tape around the terminals. Now this is the completed product, as you can see. Input to the switch coming from your box, your panel. The switch controls the hot wire, and it passes through this wire into the outlet here, right? Hot wire is hot, and neutral is neutral, and ground is grounded. Let's talk about a couple of things. Now let's talk about how your grounding works here. So if the hot wire were to ever slip off this nut, right, of the screw, which will be a rare case, but theoretically it could happen, this hot wire could end up touching the box itself, which is metal. And because it's grounded through the green screw here, back through the bare conductor here, this bare conductor is part of the ground system. It goes all the way back through the switch, back through the cable here, the ground cable inside here, and back into your panel, right? So that's what will happen if the hot wire were ever to touch the side, right, of the box. Also, now what you might ask me, what happens when the white wire touches the box? Well, the answer is nothing, because ground and neutral are of the same potential level, right? So they're not really on this outlet, not any current being passed through it per se. Okay. The other theoretical, the part of this video which has a theoretical portion of it talks about this, so you can go back there to kind of take a look at how to get a better understanding of that. But this is why the wiring system is the way it is. This is how it's designed. Okay, that's why these are metal, and that's how the grounding system is working. So let's talk about how to add another outlet to the same circuit, controlled by the same switch. In order to do that, basically you have another outlet here, and you would have another box. And what happens is that, again, following the conventions of the wire, right, you have the white and the black. Basically, you have another Romex cable going through another knockout hole here. You feed it in, and the way you would connect it is you would connect the white wire to the same side as onto this one. For example, I'll turn it around. You can take a look, right? So on this side, where the white wire is connected to this side of the outlet, I would take this white wire and connect it here to the second wire terminal here. And then similarly for the black one, you would connect it on the same side as the black one. Okay? You do not want to mix them around. You should always stay with conventions. Okay? And this is another testament as to how well these things are designed. So if you wire it this way, you're always wiring this is by design, the way these outlets and the cables are coming in, that you always be wiring in parallel. You're always making a parallel circuit. You're never making a series circuit. Now, one of the dangers of not following conventions, and I like to keep saying that you should follow the conventions, you should follow them, right? And I said it many times, is because suppose you flipped it around and you put the white wire on the black one, on the black side, on this one, right? You put this white wire onto this black side, and this black wire onto the white side of the white side of this of the original outlet. Well, what would happen? Well, if everything is well, nothing will happen, right? The switch will still work, right? And you will probably not notice any difference. But here's the thing. This is where you have to be aware when you're working on these things or someone else is working on these things. Had you have switched the wires around, okay, some guy might think, I turn off the switch and there's no power coming to the hot, right? Because we know by convention that we are switching the hot wire here, right? We're connecting the circuit with the hot wire, we're breaking the connection, right? But what would happen is that the hot wire, well, you think may be switched off if you had switched the convention and used the white wire here and the black on the other side. You may think that the white wire is safe to touch because it's at the same ground potential as the ground. However, you know that if you switch this around, that might not be the case. So a wire that you normally think would have no current flowing through it may very well have current. And you can see the danger in this. So always stick with conventions. So this video is starting to get real long, and well, coffee's almost all done too. So I hope I've taught you something. I hope that some of that knowledge that you had during school, I've been able to show you a practical example of how those things kind of fit together in real life. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing. Have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next one.